Tim Marshall for R&B Showcase Live. Coming up, our very special guest is Jeff Timmons of 98 Degrees as we spotlight Motown, R&B, and vocal groups throughout the decades. 98 Degrees, the group that brought you great sounds like Give Me One More Night, The Invisible Man, The Hardest Thing I'll Ever Do, and the wedding anthem I Do, Cherish You. They were signed to Motown, worked with Michael Jackson and Stevie Wonder, and they've got some great music and also got a story to share. Jeff Timmons of 98 Degrees, plus all of your favorite classic to contemporary R&B, Motown, pop, soul, jazz, and blues is coming up on R&B Showcase next. Tim Marshall on the R&B Showcase radio show. We have a very special guest. He's an American popular singer, songwriter, producer, and recording artist, a founding member of the vocal group 98 Degrees, the group that brought us hits such as The Hardest Thing, Give Me One More Night, and the wedding anthem I Do, Cherish You. We're going to welcome back to the R&B Showcase radio show, Jeff Timmons. How you doing, Jeff?
I'm doing great, Tim. That's quite the intro, man. I totally appreciate it. It's good to be back with you today.
It's good to hear from you, man. In fact, the last time I saw you, you were singing at a pre-concert set at the My 2K tour, completely a cappella with your group 98 Degrees. You sang in the Still of the Night by the Five Satins. And, man, I must compliment you on providing those private concerts and special things that you do for your most dedicated fans.
Well, we love that. I mean, look, honestly, that's our favorite part. I mean, it's great to get up on stage and, have great production and all that stuff. But, for any of those folks that don't know our background, we were heavily influenced by a cappella groups. So, and we didn't have play instruments, and when we all got together in California, none of us had anything but our voices, and so that's how we got signed. And we have we love to pay homage to those groups, and anytime we can do something a cappella, and we jump at the opportunity. So
our listeners are really into that a cappella and that vocal group harmony sound. So how did you actually get started in music, and who inspired you to want to be a recording artist?
Well, look, I've been surrounded by music my whole life, but I grew up in a small town in Ohio where football was sort of the main thing that everybody loved to do. It's a well-known town called Massillon, and some legendary football players and coaches are from there. And so, my whole life was revolving around football, but music, I was always drawn to it. So, in a roundabout way in college, I was trying to impress some girls at a party, and I knew some guys that could hold the tune, and we sang some a cappella stuff, and it just sounded great to me. And, we were heavily influenced by Boyz II Men, who was really emerging on the scene in the early 90s. And they inspired me so much that I started a group and moved to LA and actually ended up meeting Nick through a mutual friend and coaxed him into following the dream and coming out to LA. And he brought his brother and his really good friend Justin. And we actually got discovered at a Boyz II Men concert. We sang backstage at one of their concerts, and the rest was history for us. We got really, really lucky and fortunate.
Now, how is Justin Jeffrey doing? He's got that bass, man, that incredible bass. I mean, to have that in a vocal group is just really rounded out that sound. It sounded great.
Well, you're exactly right. And nowadays, look, they've sort of, there's still harmonies involved with, a lot of the great R&B singers like Chris Brown and Usher and Neo and The Weeknd. I mean, they all have the harmonies in there, but, you sort of lose that. The ability to sing those low notes and carry out and fill out the chord. I know I sound like a musical nerd, but, I mean, there's something to be said for somebody that has that voice. So it was very important for us to have that sort of structure with, true tenor, bass, baritone in there. And Justin's as good as any of them. I mean, we were heavily influenced by Take Six as well, and they had an incredible bass in that group, and Justin can get as low as some of the best of them out there.
I've heard that. I was actually listening to Give It Up, the interlude a cappella, that a cappella piece you guys do. That sounded like that harmony was outstanding, man.
Thank you so much. That's an obscure one. I'm glad. I appreciate that you even know that one.
I found it. I was digging in the crates.
Yeah, that's where you need to find it, too, in those crates.
So what was it like being assigned to the historic, legendary Motown Records? Tell us about it.
Well, look, Tim, it was an honor beyond belief. I mean, when we really modeled ourselves after Boyz II Men, and we were heavily influenced by those old doo-wop groups and vocal groups like the Temptations and the Four Tops. And, of course, Michael Jackson was on the label at one point, Stevie Wonder. I mean, all of those things played a big part in our influence, our musical influence. And so, our dream was to be signed by Motown Records. And, we did our demo with Montel Jordan from This Is How We Do It fame, among other hits, and shopped it around. And, many of the labels didn't want us. And so some of them passed on us, but, we're like, go to Motown. And, look, everybody was going, you're never going to get signed there. We're not taking you to Motown. And we're like, go to Motown. And actually, one of Montel's dancer's hi-hat was her name, passed the demo over to DJ Clark Kent. And he gave it to Andre Harrell, who's, sadly passed in the last year. But he was great to us. He gave us an opportunity. We went into his office. We sang for him a cappella. We moved the tables out of the way. He wanted to see us dance. We didn't do so well at that part. But, look, he gave us a shot and gave us the opportunity. So it was literally like a dream come true for us to be a part of that family. And I think we were at an intro to the old members of the labels. Some of the Temptations were there, and Smokey Robinson walked up and said, welcome to the family. And I really literally had to pinch myself. It was amazing.
That's amazing, man. Amazing. I remember seeing you on Motown Live breaking out that Eddie Kendricks falsetto, singing Can't Get Next to You by the Temptations.
Well, yeah, look, one of my favorite, of course, the Temptations are known for that. They had Just My Imagination and that sort of falsetto. You do see some guys doing that nowadays. I know Jason Derulo often flips to his falsetto on a lot of his stuff, but it's sort of a lost art form, the falsetto stuff. But Sean Stockman was always amazing at that, from Boys to Men. And it was easy for me. I got this high squeaky voice. I'm like, I got to do something with it other than do Mickey Mouse impersonations. So I tried to get on some records and do the best I could. But I appreciate that Motown Live show was a blast.
You did your thing. You sounded good, Jeff. You sounded great. Did 98 Degrees ever do Soul Train? You ever do the Soul Train?
We did. Don Cornelius had us on there, and surprisingly, Soul Train, they had everybody sort of just lip sync on that show, which I was shocked about, because they wanted to sound like the records. I was like, very surprised about that. But again, another honor for us. All of those sorts of shows that had a big influence on our careers and our, just the art form of R&B, which we have a true love for, to be accepted and the R&B culture and the Motown family and have the honor of performing and sharing that stage with so many legends have been on that show. Again, Don Cornelius couldn't have been cooler. All that stuff was really, really meant so much to us.
That's historic, man. It's a great piece of history for 98 Degrees. Now, talking about the R&B roots, did you guys actually start off as an R&B group at first? Because some of your Invisible Man charted on R&B charts.
Well, yeah, that was where we wanted to be. And, we came out, and Motown really, really wanted to, their vision for us was to take us really urban. The quote-unquote boy band term wasn't really prolific at the time. Backstreet Boys hadn't really broken yet. NSYNC was, overseas in Europe, sort of creating their fan base. And so, Motown, marketing-wise, wasn't quite sure what to do with us. I think for a while there, they wanted us to lean more Jodeci. And while we had heavily been influenced by R&B, we're still, a sort of hybrid pop group. Boys to Men, although very good R&B singers, had some pretty mainstream tracks. Jodeci, great R&B singers, a lot of church and a lot of gospel stacks in their harmonies and stuff, but still had some, mainstream pop tracks that crossed over. And so we didn't want to quite go to R&B, but they decided that maybe they should trick radio to making people think that we were an urban group. So originally on the CD Pro, for those that don't know what that is, now you can sort of pass along songs digitally, but back then you had to send a CD Pro, which is a CD with the single on it. They decided not to put our images and picture on there, because they wanted the urban radio folks to think we were a black group. And while we started getting some airplay on the urban charts, it sort of backfired because they thought it was a marketing gimmick. Okay. So we had to regroup with the label, and really just kind of let them know, we just put us out the way we are, and people can decide whether they like our music or not. No gimmicks. And, after Andre had departed Motown, there was a guy named George Jackson, who was also departed, but an amazing film producer had been brought in to take over the label, and he kind of saw us for what we were. He was like, "Look, we're going to put you out just the way you are," and he put a lot behind us. He got the whole team at the label behind us, which was an amazing radio team, amazing marketing team, and they really did a fantastic job of getting us out there.
Well, that was a great way to do it. You did the right thing, and The Invisible Man was a chart hit on the pop charts as well as international. Jeff, we're going to take a listen to your track with 98 Degrees, The Invisible Man, on the R&B Showcase. Tim Marshall on the R&B Showcase, a track from 98 Degrees, The Invisible Man, and our special guest is founding member Jeff Timmons. And Jeff, about that song, The Invisible Man, a chart hit now. They recorded a couple of videos for this single. Why two different videos? You had one black and white and one done in color. What was the purpose?
That's a good question. Sorry, my cackle interrupted what you were saying. Yeah, so originally we did one in black and white. And look, at that particular time, like we talked about, a little bit earlier, there weren't a lot of acts like us out there. And MTV wasn't playing a lot of pop R&B stuff, believe it or not. It was still coming, they were still coming out of grunge and rock. And, certainly they were playing, like R&B, like R. Kelly and LL and all those groups. But, they didn't quite know what to do with us. So, the label had us do a video. And, actually the guy that directed that video, his name's Brett Ratner. He did a number of movies, they were big and popular. And Rush Hour was one of his films later on. And a number of other major, massive hits. But, they thought, black and white sort of sultry video in the rain would be cool. Well, they took it to MTV, and MTV didn't like it.
Really?
They were just like, we don't like it.
Wow.
It's boring. And so they were like, okay, well, the budget had been spent already, so they went back and said, all right, let's do a less expensive color version. So they went and did one in color that was less produced, but eventually that ended up getting some rotation on MTV, but still not that much because TRL hadn't emerged yet. So we only got a few rotations of that video on MTV, and VH1 didn't play it at all. So here we were, we had a top 10 single, top 12 single on Billboard, top 10 on the R&R charts, and we're going around the country, trying to get people to understand that it was us. So literally we were the invisible men, Tim. When we were out there promoting the song, people didn't really believe that we were the group that was singing it, and we had to really kind of pound the pavement to get everybody's attention.
Well, I like the black and white one. I think that video was good,
I like that one better too.
Yeah,
go figure. Nowadays there's no way with the way things are so tight budget-wise and labels that they would even try to do more than one video. So we were fortunate to get two cracks at it,
Now, that first 98 Degrees album contained a version of You Are Everything. That is a stylistic sound of Philadelphia song. Tell us about that inclusion of that song on the album.
Well, look, Andre, thought that the same thing you did. He thought that, that the falsetto should be featured on a song, and he handpicked that one for us to remake. We did it with Mario Winans, who's an amazing, artist, but also a great producer. And Mario, we got in the studio, and I remember just being so nervous. I mean, so young, first album, and to Nick, I could always rely on Nick at the time, who was sort of the main lead in the group, and I would trade off with him. But he carried the sound of the group, and so I was super nervous. But Mario was great. His team was great in the studio, and I just loved the song and the stylistics. Again, another group, stylistics, Delphonics. I mean, all those guys just had incredible style to them, and so we ended up recording that one, and that's one of them I'm really proud of.
R&B Showcase with Tim Marshall with a great Philadelphia classic, a Tom Bell, Linda Creed composition, the rendition from 98 Degrees. And our special guest is founding member Jeff Timmons. And that is a track, Jeff, from your first album, 98 Degrees.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing about that because, we had a hit with Invisible Man. And then we, after Andre left the label, there was an interim president of the label, and they didn't know how to decide which single to put out next. So they went through the album, and we felt like we had a couple of other strong ones on there, that being one of them. And they decided, no, we don't have another song. So we went and recorded another song with Diane Warren, who's, very prolific songwriter. And it was called, Was It Something I Didn't Say? So they actually, re-released the album and stripped that song off of the album, believe it or not, and put Was It Something I Didn't Say on there. So, again, another, trial and error kind of thing with getting us out there. But that's, a little interesting story a lot of people don't know about.
So there's some albums with that original song on it, because I had happened to find that in one of the stores, a few years back, that original album. But then it was a new version. I guess the new version has the other song on there. So if you get a chance, it's a gem.
Thanks, man. I totally appreciate it very much.
I want to go into your a cappella recording, She's Out of My Life. This is one of the best versions I've heard of this song done by Michael Jackson. Tell us about the recording it was from your album 98 Degrees and Rising.
Well, first of all, I really appreciate you saying that. I mean, that's a true compliment. There are lots of versions of that song. Beautiful song. It was arranged. We loved the song. We wanted to do a Michael Jackson song, but, he's got so many hits, and you want to make sure if you're doing something that Michael Jackson did, that you have to, there's no way you're going to do it better. So if you're going to pick one, you got to pick something you can do differently and do a different take on it. So we had a really good friend of ours. We co-arranged it with him. And, in the studio, it was just a fun time. It was actually on our demo. We recorded it in the studio with a guy from Montel's camp named Professor Funk, who's just an incredible producer, as well as Shep Crawford, who, did Deborah Cox's big hit, Nobody's Supposed to Be Here. And we just got in the studio, and we did it old school at first. Traditionally, nowadays, you get in and everybody does their part separately and then stacks it so it sounds really thick and full. But we all gathered around the mic, and sang it together, and did a couple stacks like that in real time, and the reaction to that was always really amazing.
Well, let's take a listen to it, an a cappella track out of the album 98 Degrees and Rising. It's vocal group Harmony from 98 Degrees, featuring our special guest, Jeff Timmons, on the R&B Showcase. Great track, pure voice, 98 Degrees, and their rendition of the Michael Jackson classic, She's Out of My Life. And our special guest is Jeff Timmons, founding member of the group. And Jeff, what was it like actually performing on stage with Michael Jackson?
It was great to, be able to get up on stage and actually perform for Michael. We performed with Luther Vandross and Usher. We did Man in the Mirror for his 30th anniversary special, which again was whimsical. It was like a dream come true for sure.
That must have been great to be part of that. That was like in a couple days before 9/11, wasn't it?
It was actually the day before 9/11. It was September 10th, 2001. So we were actually in the city when, 9/11 happened, tragically.
Wow. Amazing story. Amazing. Now, you also work not only with Michael Jackson, you work with Stevie Wonder.
Yeah, I mean, and again, we've always had a wish list of people we would love to work with, and Disney approached us, and certainly we always wanted to have something on a Disney soundtrack, and they were creating Mulan at the time, and I remember being on our tour bus and them saying, hey, we got a call from Disney. Would you guys be interested in doing one of the title tracks from Mulan with Stevie Wonder? And we're like, where do we go? Yes, let's make it happen ASAP. And what was great about that was, we got to do a great song with Stevie, but when we shot the video, he was the most down to earth and coolest guy ever. I mean, and he had a setup in his trailer with the keyboard and a studio, and he had his harmonica on the set the whole time, and just music always flowing through the guy, and to be sitting there with him and discussing musical history, and him just jamming away with us and singing with us. It was one of the proudest moments I've had in my career.
We all were certainly rocking. I remember seeing you guys on Jay Leno, and they had that powerful horn section behind you, Stevie playing the piano, and 98 Degrees singing True to Your Heart. Man, that must have been such a high point there for you guys.
Yeah, it was incredible, because the year before, a year or two before that, I had visited Jay Leno's, set. I went with my former group. I had a group of 498 Degrees, and we visited his set, and we were watching him warm up the crowd before they started filming the show. And one of my bandmates raised his hand and said, hey, can we get up and sing a song for the audience? And so we got up and sang for the audience, and Jay was dancing around on stage, and he walked up and said, oh, great job, guys, great job. And I said, hey, look, we're going to be here one day. We're going to be here one day on your show for real. And then, sure enough, a couple years later, we have the honor and luxury of performing, with Stevie on the show. So, again, another just a sort of crazy, dreamlike scenario to be a part of.
Now, how long has the group 98 Degrees been together, Jeff?
Well, we formed in, late 1994, so it's going on 26 years. We released our first single. We got signed in 95, and then released our first single in 1997. So we've been around a long time. 26 years, 26 plus years.
That's hard to believe, isn't it?
No, yeah, I mean, in a blink of an eye, it's just, it's flown by for us. I mean, and look, as you know, Tim, and you're been very successful in entertainment and what you do. When you love doing, and it's that old cliche, when you love doing what you do, you never work in a day in your life. And it seemed to me like I've been on one long vacation. Now, certainly it's hard work, and you got to be dedicated and have that work ethic. And there's certainly people that are a lot more talented than us out there. But we've really enjoyed the ride.
Well, Jeff, I must applaud you on being a veteran recording artist, and with all your great accomplishments, you remain humble, approachable. You never stop. It's a continuous grind for success. And I was very impressed with your solo performance at B.B. King's Blues Club in New York City. That was about 15 years ago, and you're still doing it.
Well, I'm lucky to be doing it, blessed to be doing it, Tim, and I always appreciate the kind words and you giving me the opportunity to talk about our career and our music and all that. And not only that, I mean, I really appreciate the fact that you see us beyond, that boy band moniker and know where our roots are and know what we love musically. And I totally have a lot of respect for you for having me on and really, really giving us the opportunity to share our music with everybody. No question about it. Now, before we go, tell us about your current projects, Jeff. What do you got going on now? We've got some great stuff going on. There's going to be some big announcements. I mean, certainly COVID has thrown us for a loop, just like it has everybody else. But we have big intentions on touring in 2021. And look, we have some other big announcements as a group that we're going to talk about a little bit more in depth when things open up and they're safe. And we certainly intend on doing new music and might have some other things on the horizon. And look, I'm going to try to be like you, Tim, and get on the radio a little bit. I've got a podcast that's going to be coming out in October with some amazing guests, anywhere from pro athletes to social media influencers, recording artists, actors, actresses, all that good stuff. So just trying to keep busy. So trying to keep busy during COVID, just like everybody else. I see it. Now, talking about pro athletes, you following any of the NBA playoffs right now? I am in love with the fact that sports are back. So I'm watching every game. I watch them, I watch the repeats. And, I'm from Ohio, in northeastern Ohio, so I'm a big LeBron fan. I was going to ask you that. So am I. I love LeBron, and that's my favorite, I hope that, they win the championship. So. Well, we're on the same page with that one. I'd love to see LeBron get one more with the Lakers. Me too, man. Agreed. So, all right, man. Well, it's good talking with. I guess we're not going to get the Christmas tour this year, huh? Yeah, I know. I mean, we're kind of disappointed that we're not going to have the opportunity to do that this year. But look, it gives us something to look forward to next year. No question. Hopefully we'll be back on the grind and being able to give people something during the holidays next year. Well, I appreciate you checking in with the R&B Showcase. It's always good to hear from you, Jeff Timmons from 98 Degrees. We appreciate you, and I wish you much continued success. Thank you, sir. I totally appreciate you. Jeff Timmons, our special guest from 98 Degrees on the R&B Showcase.